Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia and this is the summary for the day of 708 for the 1st of February. Frontline changes report. We have something very significant according to a geolocation in the northern part of Avdiivka. So there is this massive geolocation in the northern part of Avdiivka. The Russian forces is geolocated in these two locations, getting struck by Ukrainian FPV drones, and this is a significant development because it signifies that the Russian forces have actually progressed the entire way all the way down from the northern part into the northern part of Avdiivka. That means the battle of Avdiivka has now opened into two different fronts in a way, into the battle within the city itself. So this is the Dacha region. This is like the holiday chalet or buildings or summer houses. And the Russian forces in the furthest geolocation is actually within the northern neighborhood. So the Russian forces basically quietly in the sense that there's no one reporting about this, to have progressed the entire northern part and entered the northern part of Avdiivka itself. And this geolocation is actually released by the Ukrainians, because this is a Ukrainian strike, but the FPV strike, and it was geolocated by Krynky, and this is significant development for Avdiivka. So now we have the Russians have basically entered Avdiivka city from two different directions, and the battle is now raging between these two areas. And this is actually looks like a pincer to me, right? It looks like the mouth, the teeth biting down. So it's going to be rather dangerous. Particularly the northern one, because the route to enter Avdiivka is actually over here. This is the road in, and nearby over at Optyne we also have a geolocation. Sorry, this is wrong color. This is Russian forces getting hit by Ukrainian FPV drones. So similarly, this actually signifies that the Russian forces actually have taken this area here. So yeah, this invalidated a little bit of the Ukrainian claims and expanded the Russian claims in this area here. And this also may suggest corroborates with the previous geolocation that shows the Russians having this area. But of course, the Ukrainians still have not accepted that Zenit might be under Russian control. We'll continue to monitor and see, whether we can have this corroboration. And so I saw a comment. I did reply to him. He said that why is my geolocation is all on Russian drones attacking Ukrainian positions? The reality is it's not. Every time there's a Russian forces being geolocated, it's almost always a FPV drone strike by the Ukrainians on the Russian forces, and usually these are drone strikes on infantry. And because it's on infantry, it's not really that significant in the sense that the Russians do FPV drone strike Ukrainian forces as well. So it's just that usually because you guys don't want the details, right? You guys just want the overall picture. So for example, for these two locations, I will just say that the Russian forces is geolocated here, which means the Russian forces have advanced in this area here. But what you don't see is that these two is actually Russian forces dying from a Ukrainian FPV strike. So while I talk a bit more on the Lancet strike, because the Lancet are hitting heavy equipments, and Ukrainians currently do not have much reinforcement or replenishment of these heavy equipments like artillery system, heavy armor, which is why it's more significant when the Lancets are hitting all these Ukrainian surface to air missile systems, the tanks, the artillery. So that is the difference, as particularly also talking about Kherson Front, because in the Kherson Front, there is nothing much happening except the Russians hitting Ukrainian assets that is actually supporting the operation at Krynky, which is why that is the main report that is being happening over here. In the rest of the front line, I've just generally go through highlighting that the Lancets are being used widespread right now. And so talking about Krynky, we have also some updates. The Ukrainian mapping have now shown a bit more details, with the Russian forces taking this area and this area of the Krynky region, with the Russian forces biting into the Ukrainian bridgehead over at Krynky, with a interesting little infiltration over at this area here, which is highlighted by the Ukrainian mapping, the deep state UA's mapping, which is very interesting because in terms of detailing where is the Russian advance, there is this particular one that they there's this pop in that they particularly put it into their mapping. So they definitely have geolocated something over there to signify the Russian presence in that region. So this actually increased the accuracy of our DPA's mapping in terms of the Krynky situation. The Ukrainians still have the beachhead, and tentatively the situation remains similar, and not much change in that sense. So another change is at Bohdanivka. So the Ukrainian pushback continues with the Ukrainian forces capturing the entire of this major forest line with the geolocation of Ukrainian forces at this position, which means that the Russian claims that they have taken this area here is now invalidated. So the latest we have now is actually the Ukrainians actually retaking this entire area, as they got as I mentioned before, almost all geolocation is someone dying, which is usually FPV strikes, artillery strikes, and it's all the Russians or the Ukrainians showing off their victories. So when you see blue, means blue, someone on the blue side died. When you see red, someone on the red side died. This, but it just simply shows that the Russian or the Ukrainian forces is at that position. So at Heorhiivka, Heorhiivka is in the Marinka region on the western part of Donetsk city. Russian forces geolocated again Ukrainian FPV strike. So I just want to highlight, just to show that it is a fair geolocation as much as I can. Russian forces getting drone strike over this area here, but these are not infantry. These are actually armored vehicles. The Russian forces launched a major armored assault at this position. They push it to this area, and then they got struck by FPV drones while they are trying to fire at Ukrainian positions. It's unclear if the Russians are able to have a foothold in this position. Definitely, we're gonna keep this spike over here until we can invalidate this, since we geolocated Russian forces to be there, which means they are there, and until they are shown to be not there. So and then further south, over at Novomykhailivka, there is Ukrainian forces getting hit, or maybe it's not Ukrainian forces getting hit, but there is a major strike, Russian airstrike over in the southern part of Novomykhailivka, hitting this position, and which means that the Ukrainian forces have retaken this I think this is a transport hub or a farm. So the Ukrainian forces have retaken this position over some days ago, which we do not know when, and the Russian forces clearly is unable to hold that position because there is actually no good way of reinforcing that position other than going through the open road over here, which is then very easily can be destroyed if they are going down this road. So which is full of wreckage right now, actually, at this position. So these are the frontline changes. This is the frontline changes report, and we now go into the strategic and tactical reporting. So we start off with the major news. Russian Ivanets missile boat has been sunk. So a lot of people commented in the yesterday's SITREP or the frontline changes report, criticizing that I totally avoided this report. It's not true. The reason this is not reported yesterday was because at the time of recording, this information have not actually even came out. It was after the upload that this information came out. So which is now why I covered this. And importantly, this thing happens on the 1st of February, early morning, and it's not when the SITREP is actually talking about the day before. So yeah, that is the main thing. Of course, the videos take time to appear on the internet. So the Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported that they destroyed a missile boat of the 41st Brigade of the missile boats of the Black Sea Fleet, and this is actually corroborated by Ryba. Ryba mentioned that Ukrainian side actually published a video of the strike on the missile boat. This is attacked by surface drones, and the video footage that I seen suggests that the same missile boat got hit multiple times, at least by 3 different surface suicide drones. So which is why the boat is believed to be sunk. So the Russian Defense Ministry have not released any statement about this thing yet. The official Russian side, the Russian government or the military have not acknowledged this incident yet. So we will wait for the Russians to acknowledge this information and see what they're gonna say. Most likely they're gonna say this is damaged and they're sending it back to the Crimea for repair. Something like this. Yeah, just like their Moscow battle cruiser that was like lightly damaged and then it is going back to Crimea for repair and then it just disappear into the Black Sea. So we go on to the there's nothing over the border region. We move into the Kupyansk Front. So over at the Kupyansk Front, there is no more major offensive in that sense. The Ukrainians are actually attacking at Sinkivka. They are still attacking Sinkivka, counter-attacking, whereas there is this new vector of attack coming from the Russians. They are now attacking Ivanivka. So this Ivanivka is actually have not seen action since early in January, 5th to 7th, and this is reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. They reported 5 different attacks near Ivanivka. So this is interesting. We will continue to monitor and see how this progress. Nothing is spoken about this salient that the Russians have created in the Kreminna, Tabaivka, Berestove region. This is not mentioned at all now. I think the Russians are still doing the consolidation in this area here. So the Russians are pushing in the new direction. Ivanivka region is a bit more harder. This area here is very heavily entrenched by the Ukrainian forces. So we will continue to monitor and see how this goes. Some geolocation of Ukrainian forces within at Sinkivka and in the western part of Sinkivka, I think nothing particularly special. This is just an anti-mine operation. They use the Comet system, and then this one was this just drone attack. So yeah, so that's it from the Kupyansk Front. There's nothing over at the Sviatove Front. We move into the Kreminna Front. So this is Kreminna, and this is the Kreminna Front. At the Kreminna Front, Russian forces and Ukrainian forces continue their positional battle in this region here. Frontline did not really change at all. The Russians are attacking at Krynky, Yampolivka, and Dibrova, as well as Serbiansky Forestry. Ukrainians are counter-attacking or attacking at Krynky, Yampolivka, Dibrova. So pretty much similar, the strategic situation. So it's just an active clash between the two forces. No changes at all is being reported. We move into the Siversk Front. This is Siversk city. So this is the Siversk Front. At the Siversk Front, we have Russians attacking Bakhmut as well as Heorhiivka. Ukrainian forces getting hit within Heorhiivka itself. I think by by airstrike. So this is a situation. I think what I would urge to look more into or to anticipate more is the Bakhmut situation. Bakhmut is getting hotter and hotter slowly. We have 14, 15, 19, 31st, and then 1st of February. So things are slowly ramping up over at Bakhmut, and this is a direct road into Siversk. So this is the main thing. We shall continue to monitor and see how this goes. Over at the Bakhmut Front, this is Bakhmut city, and this is Bakhmut Front. At the northern half of the Bakhmut Front, there is Russian forces attacking at Kromove as well as Ivanivsky. Ukrainians are counter-attacking over at Ivanivsky, and that's mainly the thing. There is some heavy bombardment of Ukrainian forces over these two tree lines, these two tree parcels. So this one of them, I believe this is TOS-18. Yeah, so this is hit by the Russian thermobaric missiles, and this is hit by Russian airstrikes. So I'm not sure what is the main thing over here. The Russians are focusing on these groups of forests. I wonder if the Russians are nearby. There is, of course, reports of Russians attacking from Kromove region. So it could be that they are attacking in this direction, and Ukrainians are having a stronghold in this area here. So and then there is of course, I already mentioned about the Ukrainians taking some grounds in the south of Bohdanivka. So we will continue to monitor the situation over in the northern flank of the Bakhmut Front. In the southern flank, situation is pretty much similar. I forgot to color this. So the Russians are attacking at Klishchiivka as well as Kupyansk, and this is about it. There's not much other information, no frontline changes. So that's it from the Bakhmut Front. We move on. There's nothing. There's something over at the New York Front. At the New York Front, so this is Donetsk. This is New York. Pivdene, Zalizne, Shumi, and over at Pivdene, which is also known as Leninsky or Leninskoye, the Russians are conducting an attack in this area here. This is reported by the Russian Defense Ministry themselves. This is probably a form of counter-attack because previously it was an attack by the Ukrainians around this area here. I believe in the New York region as well as Shumi region. So yeah, so previously the Ukrainians were attacking over here as over this area here. So the Russians are counter-attacking. So we will continue to monitor. This is largely going to be positional. The number of entrenchment in this region here, in the New York Donetsk region, this entire front line over here is super heavily fortified. So it's like Avdiivka. So there is no reason for the Russians to be pushing in this direction. As you can see, even pre-war fortifications that was identified was a whole line just east of New York. We move into the Avdiivka Front. So at the Avdiivka Front, as per the mention in the Frontline Changes report, the Russian forces is doing a massive pincer, and they have success in the north, punching into the northern parts of Avdiivka city itself. So the battles is now inside of Avdiivka in the north. Also, the fighting in the south within the Avdiivka city itself continues. The Russians are also continuing their push for the Donetsk filtration station, and Ukrainians are getting hit by the TOS-1A over in the south. We'll zoom in a bit. So Ukrainians have this position within this small neighborhood here, and the Russians are actually pushing in this area in the north, because in the south, in this area, these forest lines are all very, very heavily fortified. The Russians do not have an easy way to reach there, so they basically thermobaric missile strike this area here. The Russians continue to try to recapture this entire area, but it's still not yet successful. Ukrainian tanks can still easily maneuver into this northern part of this neighborhood and launch heavy strikes and attacks on the Russian infantry that is holding grounds within these houses over here. So in the northern half, this breakthrough is significant. We are looking at fighting within the Avdiivka city itself after the Russians have conquered basically the entire of the Dacha region, and the Russians could also probably penetrate through the forest and attack from a different direction. And so this is significant, and if this Russian push towards this Lake region, the entire area here would fall, because there is no way to reinforce this Ukrainian forces that is holding position east of the Dacha unless going for one big round around the lake, and which will be highly risky. So the Russians we may be looking at the Russians taking over this entire area here within the next few days, if the Russian forces is able to hold this front line that they have been geolocated to be struck by Ukrainian FPV drones. So so this is actually super significant, and this is as big a breakthrough as it is from the south, in my opinion. So we will see the battle of Avdiivka continue and actually expanded right now. So we move over at the Optyne region. Yeah, this is already geolocated. I already mentioned in the Frontline Changes report. The Russians are also attacking at Pervomaysky and Nevelsky. We don't have any updates in terms of the front line or what is currently happening. We will continue to monitor. So so the situation at the Avdiivka Front, attack from the north, from the south, from the southeast, and then also Pervomaysky and Nevelsky. So this is a strategic situation at Avdiivka. So we move on to the Donetsk Front. So this is the Donetsk Front. At the Donetsk Front, the Russian forces over at the Marinka sector continues to attack Krasnohorivka, as well as Heorhiivka, as well as Novomykhailivka. The Ukrainian forces counterattack over at Novomykhailivka, and there's the geolocation of Russian forces over at Heorhiivka in the north show that the Russians have done a major assault in the northern part of the Heorhiivka region. Not sure how successful is this, but they definitely is geolocated on the other tree line. Ukrainian forces continue to be hit by FPV drones within the Heorhiivka itself. We shall continue to monitor this area here. Novomykhailivka, as the frontline changes report, Ukrainian forces taken the south. So this is probably part of the counterattack. And on the other flank, the Zolota Neva situation continues. The Russian forces are still being reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry to be attacking Zolota Neva. So, like I mentioned previously, this is the city, or this is the development to watch, because if the Russians break through and capture this area here, this is going to mess up the entire strategic balance in this area here, and the Russians could totally just ignore Voleda and Preshestivka and all this region and just head north. So that's the main thing. I'll talk more about this in the conclusions. And over at the Zaporizhzhia Front, so this is Zaporizhzhia city, and this is the Zaporizhzhia Front. And the Zaporizhzhia Front, over the Velika Novosibirsk sector, which is over here, Ukrainians are on the counter-offensive. Ukrainian forces attack at Ukrainka, Staromayoske, as well as Preyone. So turning the tables, previously the Russians are the one making the attacks. Now we are seeing the Ukrainians doing these attacks. Away from Velika Novosibirsk, there's over the Khoyapole sector, there's only just one report, geolocation of Russian FPV attacking Ukrainian troops near Chervone, not important. Over at Orikhiv sector, this is Orikhiv's city, and this is the Orikhiv sector. Russian forces continue their fighting in this area here. Nesteryanka is not reported, but we still have the Malatomashka situation being reported. Ropotine is also being mentioned. There is no mention of Verbove, but we do have something new. We have fighting reported at Luhivske. This information comes from the Russian Defense Ministry. We will continue to monitor this situation. It's very here and there, very random. So yeah, so this is definitely not becoming some major frontline at this moment. Things are very slow. Ukrainian forces geolocated in the southern part of Robotine. Nothing very special about this. Over at the Kayamsky sector, the Russian forces continue their probing strategy. This time around, they are probing Zerebianki. So this is previously, the day before, is attacking Shebaki. So this time around, it's Zerebianki. I predict the next day is going to be Kayamsky. So, but we shall see. Moving on, over at the Kherson Front. So this is the Kherson Front, and this is Kherson City. At the Kherson Front, Ukrainian forces continue to hold a front line within Krynky. This time around, we have a bit more details in terms of the mapping, so we are able to confirm where the front line is more or less be. Ukrainians continue to believe in holding this front line. They will continue to reinforce, and we shall wait and see. There is geolocation of Ukrainian boats getting hit at Heorhiivka, which is probably the main embarking region for the Ukrainian forces to go to Krynky. So this is probably the forward operating base for this entire operation. But we shall monitor. The boat is attacked by artillery systems, and further away there is some geolocation. This is Lancet hitting position of a UAV crew. I'm not sure how they tell. Somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And then there's another one of this. This is actually a tank getting hit by a Lancet. So both attacks was by Lancet and hitting this area here in the northwestern part of Heorhiivka. Otherwise, I think there's nothing much more over the Kherson Front. So that's it. So this is the summary for the day of 708 for the 1st of February, and now conclusions. So first thing first, with the elephant in the room is the not elephant in the room, which is the missile boat. So this missile boat is interesting. So that I saw pro-Russian arguments saying that the boats does not the Black Sea Fleet is not going to change the frontline situation. The Black Sea Fleet does not participate in the war that much, and so the pro-Russians are dismissing sinking of this missile boat. I would argue slightly otherwise. So in the event that the whole Black Sea Fleet is sunk, let's say there's no Black Sea Fleet, there is no Russian Navy in the Black Sea, What is the implication? The implication is that NATO or any other navies in support of Ukraine will be able to go straight directly into Odessa or to the region, to Ukraine. They can reinforce and help to provide supplies, reinforcement, equipments more easily, because they can actually sail through directly to Ukraine. And even if the Russians claim that no, they will use air cover to protect the sea lanes against reinforcement and resupply to Ukraine, is not going to be effective because planes cannot fly around indefinitely. So which is why the ships are important. The ships prevents basically blockades Ukraine from the sea. The Black Sea Fleet's presence, they don't even need to go over here. Just by being present in the Black Sea is a naval blockade on the Ukrainians. So this is the main thing. So if the Ukrainians keep it up and maybe in 10 years time destroy the entire Black Sea Fleet, yeah, I think this is gonna cripple the entire naval blockade of the Russians. But of course, why I say 10 years, because the likelihood is very, very low, because the Russians are keeping the Black Sea Fleet away from the Ukrainian coast, and this presents a significant problem for the Ukrainians to hit these Russian Navy ships. As you see, the missile boat is being reported to be hit on the western part of Crimea, so which is over in this area here, western part of Crimea. Most of the Black Sea Fleet right now is very far away. I think over there, very, very far away. I think south of Sochi, or maybe Novorossiysk, probably here. And it's very hard for the Ukrainians to launch suicide drones at this position because it's a bit far. Previously, they used container ships to hide the drones and do sudden attacks. This is no longer possible because of how the Russians learn of this strategy, and they have made a lot more restrictions and verification and protections in this area here. So, but the Russian Navy will still need to patrol in this area, which is why they got sunk. So we go into the front line. As I mentioned in the SITREP, I think this Russian push in Ivanivka is interesting. It's going to be very hard though. The Ukrainians have very strong defense in this area here. This is probably just to continue to draw Ukrainian forces away from the salients that the Russians have developed over at Avdiivka. So yeah, it is definitely going to pose problems for the Ukrainians if the Russians continue to push in this direction. And once enough distractions away from Avdiivka or Kreminna region, the Russian forces will start to attack Pivshane. This is probably what will happen. So there's nothing over at the Svetove front. It went quiet. Kreminna, nothing much to talk about. So over at Siversk, Bakhmut attack is more concerning, I would say, because if the Russians are able to attack into the village itself, a push towards Siversk is actually not that far away. And an attack on Siversk, causing the battle to be waged within this area here, will collapse the entire front line in these two areas here, because the Russians will be able to cut off all reinforcement route and cause a major collapse of the entire front line. So Bakhmut is super important. The Ukrainians must hold this position if they want to keep the entire Siversk front. So we will continue to monitor and see how this progress over the Siversk front. Over the Bakhmut front, I think everything is very stagnant. I think nothing much to really talk about today. Nothing about Niu-York. As I mentioned in the SITREP, this entire front line over at Niu-York is among the heaviest fortified positions. There is basically no way the Russians is going to penetrate through without suffering major losses for two cities, New York and Torres. This New York, that has very low strategic importance. So I don't think they're going to do this. These cities are meant to be bypassed, to be go around. So that's what they are for me. And over the Avdiivka front, this is significant. This is a very, very major development over this Avdiivka front. The this breakthrough is unexpected. We do already know that the Russians have been pushing in this direction for some time. It's just that this breakthrough come as a very sudden information. We do not have any information that the Russians have succeeded in pushing forward in the north, and suddenly they are now in the city itself. So if you look at where the geolocation at this position, this is basically already inside the city. Essentially, this is basically the suburb. The further north, this is dacha. So this is actually the summer houses. But you know, in this area, this is considered the suburb already. They are already inside Avdiivka itself. And once they are inside, the Russian forces can use infantry to continue to spread out, and it's going to be very hard to catch. Which means that the Ukrainian forces will have to go in with their own infantry and of course armored vehicles to support them, and house-to-house fighting is going to be very, very difficult for both sides actually. So, but this is a breakthrough. So this is a important breakthrough, and this also comes as a reflection. Is very similar to the situation in the south where the Russians have this major break. But the Russians currently is being stuck in the south. The Ukrainians are holding them back in this area here. The Russians cannot push out, and it just shows how difficult it is for the Russians or to fight the Ukrainians, because the Ukrainians do defend very, very well. Otherwise, we will continue to monitor this situation. If the Ukrainians get too busy with these two teeth that is biting them down, the Russians is going to go in this area here a lot easier. This area here is going to fall very, very easily. And particularly, I also just now mentioned in the SITREP, I want to repeat again, is that if the Russians are already here, they can actually push towards the lake, close up this area here, and this will cause the Ukrainians to be unable to reinforce the front line that is currently in this area here. They will find it very hard to reinforce this area because they will have to go around, and by going around, the Russians are already in this area here. If this push towards the lake succeeded, they will blockade this area. The entire Ukrainian forces in this area will be in the north of the lake will be encircled, or operationally encircled. No, it's actual physical encirclement, and it will collapse. The entire line will collapse. So I predict that if this happens, the Russians is going to easily take the entire area here, and we'll see a massive change in terms of the front line. And so this is very, very significant. So and then with the fall of this entire northern part, then we'll see the fighting to be focused on this area. And we already know that the Russians are already pushing in the east. This is going to collapse the entire front line over here as well. So it's going to be there's going to be a cascading effect. And with all this falling, the Ukrainians will not be able to reinforce and resupply the Donetsk filtration station, and then that will collapse. And this is going to be very fast. You know, this entire collapse will come very, very fast if the Ukrainians allow this cascading effect to continue. So so Avdiivka is very significant. We will continue to monitor to see how this progress. Avdiivka is not Bakhmut. Avdiivka is a heavily fortified region. However, unlike Bakhmut have around 2 to 3 escape routes, of all lifelines. Avdiivka have only one lifeline. There's only one road, only this road. So so Avdiivka is stronger and weaker at the same time as compared to the Bakhmut city. So the Battle of Bakhmut versus the Battle of Avdiivka, they're going to have a lot of similarities, but they are also going to be rather different strategically speaking. So moving out, the Russians have continued to lose grounds in the south, in this area here, which is predictable because the Russians will find it very hard to reinforce the area, while the Russians are mainly pushing from the north, so they can close up the front line. So once they close up, then of course then they can actually launch a real assault into Novomykhailivka. So that's predictable. Yeah, so this is the other significant one, the Russian pushing out, but I saw around 4 or 5 or 3 or 4 armored vehicles. So it just shows how difficult it is. Even you have an armored feast attacking into a frontline region, you can you can still fail. So I'm not sure how well the Russians can hold that position, or maybe they can't. And what else can I talk about? Okay, Zolotan Neva. So this area here, worth talking about. So if you look out into the bigger picture, if the Russians are able to capture Zolotan Neva, let's say this succeeded, they can totally bypass this entire area. This entire area will be pointless. The Russians can just push towards Shetaske, and then they can head towards Velika Novosilka and collapse this entire front line over on the eastern bank. They can attack northward towards Constantinople, and then once they reach around this area here, this entire area here will then be compromised. It's not going to collapse yet, but it's going to be compromised. And if the Russians continue to push and capture Constantinople and Avdiivka, then this area is going to compromise, and this entire area will collapse. So this direction is actually strategically very advantageous. So I don't expect the Ukrainians going to let go easily. I'm expecting them to further reinforce and making sure that Zolotan Neva don't fall, because this is the alternative. Zolotan Neva is the alternative for the Russians to avoid going through this very, very hard line. Now, this line is so difficult to go through. As you can see, the front line changes over this region very, very slowly. So which is why Zolotan Neva is the one that I will be watching. This is the area that I think the Ukrainians need to focus, need to make sure that it doesn't fall, because the Russians will be able to benefit a lot. Just by going through this, they will avoid the battle of Voleda, they will avoid the battle of Konstantinivka. They don't even need to fight Novomykhailivka. All these major fortress towns or settlements is going to just collapse on its own. So yeah, so this is the main thing why I keep focusing on Zolotan Neva. Otherwise, I think the rest of the front line, Heorhiivka is just going to be a distraction now. I don't think the Russians are intending to attack Heorhiivka at all. And this mosquito attack against the Kreminna sector will continue. It's going to continue to be very irritating for the Ukrainian forces, like my nose. My nose. And yeah, and Krynky continues to be a thing. So it's getting very crinky already, very cringy. But no, Ukrainian forces continue to hold this position at huge cost. And the cost is not in the front line. It's not just the infantry that is dying, trying to hold that beachhead, but it is the heavy equipment that is getting hit in the rear in support of this operation that is actually more costly. So anyway, yeah, so this is the conclusions and the entire wrap my summary for the day of 708 for the 1st of February. So do press the like button, subscribe, and for those watching on the paywall, behind the paywall in Patreon, Boosty Locals, Coffee, YouTube membership, thank you for your support, and do continue to support, because it is through your support and subscriptions and monthly contributions that keeps me going, because the views are low means the revenues are low, and it is through you DPA sergeants, officers, that is allowing me to continue without panicking. Yeah, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next update.